This is a life-changing, decision for, our clients and yours. And you don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to overlook things that could really cause problems down the road or even immediately. So I think it's important.
You need 5 million plus to open up Burger King, because you can't just open up one. You have to open up multiple ones. A lot of times we have to reset the level. That there's some great franchises that are really well known, whether it's in the junk removal space, commercial cleaning, residential cleaning, even window washing. They're really known in that segment.
They see a bigger commitment. They see also support behind the investor, that there's a franchisor that's going to be supporting this company, doing the training, other stuff that I think it creates a positive impression with the officers.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our latest episode on our podcast, focusing on all things related to business immigration to the U.S. Today, we've got a really good guest of ours and longtime friend, Patrick Findaro from Visa Franchise. Patrick, thanks for joining us.
Charles, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Patrick and I kind of go back for many years. And I've kind of followed his development and the development of his firm when they started out in Miami, and now Patrick's living the good life in Europe, and maybe he'll tell us a little bit about that and pros and cons of living on that side of the pond. But Patrick heads up a Visa franchise, I should say, a franchise brokerage. In a few minutes, I'm sure he can give us a little bit more details about that. But it's a company that works closely with a lot of our clients as well, in terms of finding appropriate franchise models for clients who are interested primarily in doing E-2s. There's theoretically maybe some other visa categories. Maybe you could do an L1 with these franchises, but I think probably the most popular route is doing an E-2 and combining that with a franchise. And Patrick and his team work closely with clients to pick a franchise that meets their financial expectations and meets all the other criteria. So maybe, Patrick, I shouldn't speak for you. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how you work there at Visa Franchise.
No, definitely. And I think we met shortly after I left my prior company in 2014, where I was working in the EB-5 investor visa space. And I just discovered there were a lot of people that wanted to invest less capital and work day to day in a business. And my brother was living with me in Miami as well, working at Burger King. We thought franchising made a lot of sense for the E-2 visa. So we definitely focus on E-2 visas, but like you said, L1, we probably had 35, 40 clients do franchise investments through the L1 visa, but definitely our bread and butter and working with you, it's just easier for someone to, meet the immigration requirements, the E-2, and it gives us more flexibility in terms of the job requirements and everything for the E-2 category.
And you guys have been around for probably 10 years now? You've been
10 years. Yeah. 2015, we started in October 2015, and then did a big launch in January 2016. And since then we've had clients from 65 different nationalities all over the place. Just had our first Finnish client approved for an E-2 visa today. We've been working with a lot of Canadians, all people throughout the Americas, Europe, Asia. And most of them are investing 80, 100, 150K in a service-based franchise that we can go into more details on, that they're going to work day to day, and it's going to provide a meaningful livelihood for him or her or their family.
And you guys really have kind of a transnational, international team, don't you? I mean, I think you got people.
Well, I know you've interacted with quite a few of our colleagues, and our headquarters is in Miami Beach. We have a few of my colleagues there. I spent my time, as you mentioned, between Europe, here in France, as well as in Miami, going back and forth every 6 weeks or so. And then throughout Latin America, we have colleagues as well as in Spain and Turkey.
Awesome. So can you tell me, maybe let's start with some general things, and then we'll kind of maybe narrow it down, more specific issues, and maybe some examples even of some businesses and franchises you've worked with. I'm just curious, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers are interested. What are some of the most recent trends you've seen with franchising for international investors? And maybe have you seen any changes over the last, 3-5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Charles, when we started working together, we had a lot of clients investing in brick-and-mortar type businesses. So it could be a restaurant, and they tended to be higher investment thresholds, 250K, 300K, 400K, open up a healthy food business. or a business that has a showroom for kitchen and bath remodeling. These can be great businesses, but they come with a high price tag, generally 300K plus.
Right.
And what we started seeing and started pushing for was lower investment amounts for service-based franchises, that the investor does need to be um, better at sales, or at least higher for to curve out, the if they don't have a high level of sales acumen, but they're able to start the business for substantially less and not have to do, Miami-Dade County is crazy. You want to open up a business that has a physical footprint. We had some clients invest in barbershops. One of our clients opened up 14 barbershops through
Right.
called The Spot Barbershop. Started with one. I think it took 9 months to open up the first one. A couple of them took like a year to open up.
It's crazy.
Restaurants, we had clients open up in Broward too, 9 months, a year, and yes, you get tenant improvement, abatement, but it's hard, it's
Yep.
not like the best way to start a business. We recently interviewed a client on our YouTube channel, moved from Canada, that invested in the Maids franchise, residential
Mhm.
cleaning, broke even in 3 months. Pretty straightforward business to get going, and a business that you can scale up over time. So we prefer those kind of easy wins where you can get the business up and operating quickly, as well as, break even.
Well, that's actually good news because I know I recall that earlier, maybe 5 years ago and stuff. Yes, a lot of our conversations we had were franchises involving investments north of 300,000. So I guess that's encouraging to hear that services and there's more low price options available, right? Are there some other examples right now? I mean, like besides maid services, are anything else that comes to mind
I'm
that's
a big fan of in-home care. So
oh,
franchises that are specifically serving the senior community. Florida, second biggest market besides California, but we have clients opening up throughout the United States, generally in the Sunshine States, Texas, Arizona,
right.
Florida. But those are businesses that you could open up with 100K, 120K, including working capital. And, I've interviewed franchisees, one that's making $8 million of revenue. It didn't happen in the first year. It took, 9, 10 years to get there, but it's a business with relatively low capital investment. You can really scale up and create, a sizable asset for you and your family. So I like that one, and it's a good fit if someone then wants to work with you, Charles, to transition maybe to an EB1C green card or some other type of green card that
Or even an EB5 theoretically, an
EB5,
EB5, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I presume though, in that kind of business though, and you alluded to this earlier, in those cases, they probably have to be good salespeople and probably have good English skills or the ability to hire the needed personnel that can do that.
Exactly, yeah. So, we have also some franchises like Estate Insurance, an insurance agency where they if they're coming from Latin America, for example, and they're serving mostly Spanish speakers, that's fine, but generally they should have a high level of English and be comfortable with sales, or at
Mhm.
least, really be willing to put the capital in to hire that main sales manager, whether it's 50K, 60K, 70K a year, because you're going to focus more on the operations, the management, and the back office functions. But for these service-based businesses, it definitely helps to have someone that's comfortable with sales and a people person.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just curious with the in-home care model, is that generally something that's paid? Is that a Medicare type program that the payments are generally
It depends, and it really depends state by state, in terms of what the benefits are. And we have clients that have a mixed where some have some component, but I would say most are private, and at least initially, that when they're opening up, it's private pay, and they're serving seniors, 70 to 90,
Right.
and there's some options like options for Senior America where the caregiver actually lives in one of the spare bedrooms of that senior. So imagine someone at
Mm,
single family home, five
right.
bedrooms, their kids have left, they've sadly lost their husband. The caregiver can actually live on site.
Wow, interesting. Okay. I presume I know you guys work with clients throughout the country, right? They're not limited to South Florida, but does it just turn out the majority of your clients live and
That's a
located?
big change too, talking about trends. Miami's got expensive, man.
Yeah.
So it is, South Florida has really changed since we both moved.
Yeah.
And I know you spent time in DC. I went New York, and then I grew up in Washington DC and Virginia,
Right.
rather. But Miami has really changed. So I think I don't really advocate my clients to move to Miami unless one of them has a spouse that is, going to take a job and be high earner and needs to
Mhm.
kind of be in Miami, or if they're just very wealthy and they have other income or assets to live off of. Um, I would say more clients are moving to Texas right now
I
than
was just gonna say Texas is a hot market. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. I think it's a good I think it's a good mix of business and quality of life. Where like,
Mhm.
I don't know what your opinion is, but I'd say California is probably higher quality of life than Florida, but maybe Florida is better for business, and Texas,
Correct.
has that the edges on the business side and the
Yeah,
customer.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, California is beautiful, but it's not cheap either. And
Yeah.
taxes will get you too.
I
Absolutely.
know it's telling you like how long it takes to open up in Miami-Dade County, and it's not much easier in San Diego County and LA
Hmm.
County.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that gets kind of to the discussion about blue states, red states,
Yeah.
but I guess yeah, that's a misnomer. Even though Florida prides itself on being pro business, you're right. I think at least in South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward, yeah, it takes a long time to get
We
those
have
permits.
the good part and bad part of Latin America.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious when clients come to you, are there misconceptions that they often have and your team have to kind of correct them and say, hey, franchising is not this, it's more that. What are some of the common myths people have?
I would say, there's 7,000 plus franchises, and we have our sister company, Vetted Biz, one of the largest data companies for franchises. We have financials on 3,600 of those. Um, Misconceptions, I would say, the cost to get in a franchise for a really big name, like you need 5 million plus to open up Burger King, because you can't just open up one, you have to open up multiple ones.
Hmm.
And generally there's not territory available, and they
Right.
already want someone that has US restaurant experience. So I would say misconception is that you coming into the US as a foreigner international entrepreneur can have access to all these kind of marquee food brands, comes up. And a lot of times we have to reset the level that there's some great franchises that are really well known, whether it's in the junk removal space, commercial cleaning, residential cleaning, even window washing. They're really known in that segment. And they do that really well, but you don't know it, especially coming from abroad. But
Sure.
consumers know it. They have the search engine optimization, SEO, where you're going to be getting leads for that service based on joining that larger franchise system.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think people tend to underestimate the costs involved, or again, it's just you guys work around their budget? And if somebody says, "Hey, I can invest 300, 400," or if they say I can only invest 100, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's just a matter of finding an option that meets
I
that
think
budget.
people underestimate, and we've now managed the expectations a lot better, like to have that rainy day fund. So generally, if I say it's 120K investment, there should be $30,000 of working capital. The rest is spent on equipment, the vehicle, the franchise fee, the uniforms for the staff, whatever. But you still need to live. And, South Florida for a family, married, 2 kids, at least 15K a month. You could get by on less, but depending where you're living, and, certain parts of Texas might be 6K a month.
Right.
So having at least a 6-month runway, it could be less if you have income, or your spouse is going to, work remote after they get work authorization in the US, and
Sure.
have that income coming in. But I would say you need at least 50K saved up, because if you don't have that, you won't, it's hard to sleep well at night, and you start getting, hesitant to spend money on marketing, where you really need to be spending on the opening, the first couple months on marketing. But if you don't have much in savings, then it can be hard to really get that business off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So let's say, for example, we've got a client who came to us, and they expressed an interest, or we proposed, possible franchising, and we introduce them to you. Can you guide our listeners through kind of the general process that they would go through?
Yeah, definitely,
Yes.
Charles. So, if someone came to us direct, off the street or off YouTube, we're going to charge them a fee, a monthly fee. But if they come through you, they're a client, they're well referred, we waive that monthly fee, and we really open up and roll out the red carpet where we
There you go.
showed them.
Good to hear.
They fill out their questionnaire. We have a call with my team. We really understand what they're looking for, in terms of industries, investment amount, and all that. So within 5 business days from having that onboarding form filled out, and if the call happens promptly, we'll deliver their first 5, 6, 7 franchises in their desired markets, and then have a call to review those options, and then connecting them with franchisors. Later on, vetting it with existing franchisees where they can meet over a phone call or actually meet in person.
Do you guide the client in terms of selecting the franchise, or you kind of just turn everything over to the client and let them guide the process and you just answer their questions? Or
We're definitely guiding the process.
okay,
So I would say prospective E-2 visa investors are looking to buy a franchise. You can do it on your own. We've been doing this for about 10 years now. We've seen a lot of bad businesses. We've seen some good businesses too. So a lot of clients are looking for us to guide the process, but we take in, their feedback, or if they see an interesting franchise opportunity. Hey, Patrick, Laura, what do you think about this opportunity? And we have our own system, our own due diligence, to review the brand to see if it makes sense to investigate further and have a call.
oh really? Okay, all right, that's good to know. So from start to finish, like say generally, from the time we make an introduction with you until everything's well, here's a question. I guess it really depends on the type of franchise too. I was going to ask, how long does that process take? And I suppose it depends if they're going to have a brick and mortar location to do the fit out and all that other stuff. I mean, that can, like we just said, get the permits, it could take 6 months, 9 months, or
Exactly. So yeah, let's focus on maybe one of the service-based
sure.
concepts. Generally 2 months, 2.5 months to make a decision on which franchise to invest. Of course, this could be as little as 6 weeks. It could be 3, 4 months or beyond.
Mhm.
And then working with you shouldn't take, what, 6 weeks to then put.
Yeah, the legal side, yeah, we jump in, yeah, month to two,
Yeah.
generally, yeah, yeah.
And then the big thing's a consulate. We had a client approved in Mexico. It just took a week. So from the time we started the franchise search, so the time his attorney got the E-2 visa approved for him was 4 months. So if the consulate interview time is not taking long, it's 4 months. Or I think Toronto's now more like 3 months out. So it'd be more like 6 months from start
Right.
to finish. But the idea is definitely do it within a year. And I would say, we have some clients that do a change of status. They come from different countries, whether it's Pakistan, and then after 90 days, they adjust status. So for those cases, it's, closer to the 4 months. Or
I'm curious to hear, I know you guys aren't attorneys yourselves. I'm just curious, so from your experience, are there any consulates that you guys, kind of your go-to consulates? I mean, we kind of have our list that we think
yeah,
they're, better, or is it kind of even?
I think in terms of adjudicating trends and
Right.
consistency over the last 10 years, Toronto, hands down.
Yes.
Where how they're going to look at the case. They know, they seem to like franchises.
Yep.
We've had minimal issues there. The issues that we have had in Toronto have been overcome on the second attempt. Where some of the Asian consulates, they just, I don't know if it's more they're seeing E2 essential employee visas and they're not seeing many investor visas, but we just have had some weird interactions for our clients in certain consulates. But Toronto has definitely been like a mainstay for our clients.
Yeah. That's interesting you say that. We've had the exact same experience, and we send a lot of non-Canadians to Toronto as well. It tends to
It's
work
so
out.
surprising. So few people know that. I was talking to an attorney yesterday and he was telling me about a crazy delay. I'm like, well, your client's spending a lot of time in the US. Why doesn't he just fly up to Toronto and do the E2 visa there?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, so are there, when clients look at franchises or evaluate them, besides the financials, which is probably the most important side of things, are there other factors that you advise clients to consider, like cultural fit, or is that just kind of a warm
No, that's a great
feeling? Is it?
that's a great question, Charles. And I think there's been a lot of private equity that's entered in the franchising space, and there's some great private equity firms, and there's other ones and family offices that are really just looking to make money off you as the franchisee. So you have to be very mindful of that and who you're kind of getting into bed with, because it's a marriage. You're signing generally a 10-year agreement. So we have had some clients gravitated to more of a family-owned business, closely held business. Maybe it's run by the founder or someone that's bought out the franchise system, and they plan to be there for the next 5 to 10 plus years. Where other ones, the private equity could be have invested and they're more in growth stage where it's like, let's open up. There's one, I don't want to mention the name, but going through the financials, they lost so much money the first year after they were acquired, but that was strategic where their C-suite was so strong, and the franchisees that signed up that year and the following year were getting so much support, and the private equity fund was paying for it. They were not trying to
Yeah.
extract value, they were really in growth mode. Where that same business or, depending on the stage of the investment might be more, okay, let's extract value. Let's try to make money from the technology fees and all these kind of BS fees that you could, essentially get from a
Right.
franchisee.
Yeah, exactly. I had a question and it escaped my mind here. But I was curious also. So here's a little bit off topic, related to this, and I'm not sure if you've had any experience, but I'm curious if your clients. I get the feeling that a lot of your clients are applying with their native citizenship, right? They were born in Canada or the UK or Pakistan. But I'm curious if you've had many clients that had second citizenship that they acquired through investment, like through the Grenadian program. Turkey has a similar program, stuff like that. And I'm just curious if you guys have been getting any kind of negative feedback with those second passports. If you recall, the Amigos Act that was passed in December 2022, said that theoretically you had to show you had domicile in that second country before applying. We didn't have any problems for several years after that was passed. Recently, we had one issue with one client. I'm just curious if that's been your experience as well, or
Yeah. So Charles, I mean, we started the firm, my brother and I, in Brazil, helping dual nationals that, basically got citizenship by descent, Italian passport, Spanish passports. So,
Mm,
in the beginning, most of our clients were using second passports. And then through, one of your fellow immigration attorneys introduced us to the citizenship by investment world in 2017.
right.
And we had our first client approved with a Grenadian passport, invested in an ice cream shop in 2018. And that kind of opened us up to this world of, basically buying passports and
Sure.
having a second country, for mobility or all different types of purposes. And we didn't have any issues as well. I think it was passed in December 2022. We had many Turkish citizens that got through investment, Grenadian
Really?
citizenships by investment. 2023, still, I think maybe one issue, but tons of approvals. But at that point, I would never tell a client, yeah, go out and get this passport and then apply for the E-2 visa, because there's technically it's not allowed unless, you've been domiciled there for 3 years. So we have had issues for sure. We've had some denials for those that
Specifically for that
obtained
reason.
a Grenadian citizenship and then applied for the E-2. But as there's a lot of visa categories, and if they've accumulated that much wealth, maybe they do an O1 visa or some other
Mhm.
some other visa category
Right.
that can, meet their needs.
Yeah. We've had that experience too, and I suspect maybe even though the law was passed in December 22, I think there was, I don't know if you want to call it a grace period, or they weren't too fast to start implementing it. But yeah, starting in 2024, we started to see them paying attention to kind of those issues and
And
stuff
then
like that.
I've learned so much because, we were always focused on the franchise side, but as I see the immigration side, I see what's happening with our clients. And we had UK nationals that have a domicile requirement that were
Yes.
living. They didn't. One of them like never spent much time at all in the UK and got an E-2 visa. And by law, that's not allowed because you should be, domiciled in the UK. That's the one
Correct.
country. So,
Yeah.
I think depending on the consulate officer, the consulate posts, I don't know if they're not.
It's Russian roulette, believe me. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's the luck of the draw. Sometimes you get the luck out. Sometimes maybe not. But by and large, and I'm sure you've had this experience too. E2s, from our experience, are very very easily approved. I mean, very few problems. I think if you compare it to other visas and stuff like that.
And the problems we've had recently, like they've been kind of warranted, sadly, whether it's someone that overstayed a visa years back or the source of funds wasn't properly documented. It's pretty clear why they didn't get the E-2 visa and why, they hopefully will reapply for that E-2 visa or another category. I can't think of any cases in the last 10 years where I'm like, oh man, like he was denied. It doesn't make any sense. Like usually you're denied for a reason. Like they see that you're putting your ass on the line, putting hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in the US. They want to make that happen. I think the consulate officer.
Yeah,
So it's usually
yeah,
a good
yeah, yeah.
reason.
Yeah. I think we see some of those denials sometimes. I guess the denials that we see are most often related to the lack of ties with that country. And I suspect, and we tend to work a lot with Eastern Europeans or maybe Russian nationals that might have a second passport. And especially in the current political situation, I think they're paying.
Have you seen those issues in Toronto? Because I find those are like more problematic in like Pakistan and certain countries.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We have not. Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. We haven't had those issues in Toronto as much as other, if they're applying in their native country or nearby country in Eastern Europe, maybe Kazakhstan, Moldova, stuff like that. And I think it's true. If it's a less developed country economically, they're going to be apply greater scrutiny, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can get denied, but I think having a really tight business and then, making sure that you show those ties and everything can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And clients often ask us this. I don't think you have this question because you guys deal solely with franchises, but clients often ask us, hey, what are my chances better if I use a franchise as opposed to going with my own concept or something? And I'd have to say, all things being equal, I don't know if there's a big advantage, but I would say, yeah, there probably is an advantage of using a franchise because like you said, they see a bigger commitment. They see also support behind the investor that, there's a franchisor that's going to be supporting this company, doing the training, other stuff that I think it creates a positive, impression with the officers.
Yeah. I mean, we've had a few clients I can think of, recent one in Mexico, one a long time back in Brazil that was on our YouTube channel for an interview where they basically said someone next to them got denied and like they were drilling them. And then for the interview, it was like a kind of a cakewalk where it was like 5 minutes and just like checking items. I was like, okay, well, you invested in it for this reason. Okay. You're going to get training. Okay, great. I think it depends on the profile. Like if you have a really, extensive professional background and you come from a certain industry in your country, you're investing in the same industry, you already have clients in the US, then it doesn't matter really the franchise or your independent business. Maybe the independent business was actually better.
Could be. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you've taken like a big career break and then now all of a sudden you're going to start a business in the US from scratch, I think that it's going to be harder to get.
Yeah, you might raise some red flags.
Independent.
Yeah.
And then
We often tell our clients when they're preparing for the interview, pretend, if they're familiar with the show Shark Tank, right? Pretend, you're going in front of like 4 or 5 investors and you're pitching yourself, your business, convincing them that, hey, this is going to be a successful business.
No, that's well said. And then, yeah, I mean, I think it's you're selling a U.S. government official why you should move to the U.S. for the next 5+ years.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about our neighbors to the north, our good friends up in Canada. And I know you mentioned earlier that you guys are seeing a good flow of clients from that part of the world. Are there any special considerations, when you're dealing with Canadians as opposed to other nationalities?
I would say just maybe a little bit on the tax planning side. If like they keep businesses and assets, they have to kind of figure that out. And I would just get proper guidance on that. And like it might be a phased approach as you change your residency to the US and there's different structures, but generally you're going to save a lot in taxes.
Yeah.
If it's done right, coming from Canada to the US. But yeah, it sounds like Canada's kind of just been the perfect storm of why people are moving, whether it's, taxes, high costs of housing, lack of jobs, social, political issues.
Yeah.
But I would say Canadians overall are the most adapted to do this, to invest in a U.S. franchise and move to the U.S. on an E-2 visa.
And I think they're best positioned as well. I mean, despite all the rhetoric coming out of Washington and unfortunately kind of negative about Canada and some of our other, allies, I think Canadians are, it's still at the embassy, they're very well predisposed towards Canadian applicants as compared to, some other nationalities.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that.
Yeah. 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 Well, I'm curious, without naming any names or anything, are there any success stories that you often, discuss with potential clients or something that, about how, you guys have done, or even maybe there was a case where, it was exceptionally difficult and you guys were able to, kind of.
I want to show you. I don't know if you knew, but I actually wrote a book, and I have 21 case studies.
All right. Here's a great plug.
So yeah, that's okay, but
Hey, I bought your book. I'd like to get it autographed at some point.
definitely.
I got the Kindle version, so maybe that might be hard to autograph.
Well, let's say Sabrina, after this, we'll send you a.
All right. All right. Actually, yes, please do. We'll share it in our office. Yeah, yeah. And if you've got case studies there, excellent.
So like I have one client from Turkey. He opened up a healthy fast food restaurant. 350K invested. He got his capital back in a year and a half, and he's the number one franchisee in terms of sales. He was already successful before moving to the US. So like I don't have many clients that like they just joined a franchise and like magically they became like mediocre to really successful, but they've been able to like really continue that trend. Another client from Canada that opened up a real estate property management franchise, and now he manages over 1,000 properties.
Wow.
So he
And that was through a franchise. That was a franchise. Interesting. Now that's very hot. That's something we didn't discuss earlier. And I want to put this out to everyone. Yes, we do have a lot of inquiries about property management. So yes, that's something we could work with Patrick and his team on.
Yeah. Right now, there's only a few property management franchises that I think actually make financial sense. There's probably like 20 offered. I think we're comfortable recommending, 3 max.
Okay.
It's a get rich slow business, a lot of work, but the nice thing is like you can have recurring revenue if it's properly.
Good residual income.
Exactly. But I would say it's a lot of work, and um if you're looking for quick wins and to break even in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, it's possible with a property management franchise, but the income's not going to be there if you're looking to start, getting 5K, 10K a month. It's going to take some time for property management to get there. It could be 2 years to hit 10K a month to provide for your family.
Right. I'm curious, your Turkish client that you mentioned with the health food franchise, what location, what city was he in?
Tampa.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he opened up in Tampa, the west coast of Florida. We've had a lot of clients move to Sarasota area, Naples, Florida. And then I mentioned Texas. Also, the Carolinas are really growing in popularity for our clients, whether it's education, low cost of living, more mild climate than Florida.
Yep. We've seen that as well. Yeah. We've seen that as well. So that's interesting. Well, very good. And I'm glad we talked about the property management because that's something we definitely have interest in. And so we'll definitely promote that with our clients too. One other question, and I know this is maybe, I don't want to end things on a down note, and maybe this won't be our last question, but are you noticing maybe a decrease in interest over the last 6 to 9 months, given the new administration? Are people kind of souring on
April was tough. It was like a standstill with the tariff announcements. And then May was a little slow too, but then it really picked up this summer.
Really?
And I think, the US, what's a better market to like make money and grow professionally and like give your children, a really truly international experience with cultures from all over the world. So we have a lot of European clients, people leaving the UK, Germany. We continue to have Canadian clients. So it hasn't been slowing down. I think, as much as bad press you see about the US, it's a very powerful nation that's now flexed its muscles, and Europe seems pretty damn weak and has a lot of issues politically, economically, socially. So whatever.
Well, the politicians come and go, fortunately. So,
Yeah. And depending on how you feel about Trump, it's, 3 years and, the pendulum could switch left. It could go, stay where that is or go.
Right. I don't know if it could go much more right, but
Yeah.
maybe we'll see. But yeah, no, that's encouraging, and we've seen that too. And actually, I thought, I think we've been kind of surprised by the interest among Canadians, that despite kind of the, I think, unjustified rhetoric coming out of DC lately, a lot of Canadians they still see better opportunities here, especially for the children, as you mentioned.
Yeah, and we see like a lot of our clients coming from Canada to the UK, they're first generation immigrants. So I don't know, they don't get as tied up with the politics and they're more looking for family economic opportunities.
Yeah.
And, whether they were born in India and went to Canada and they have a Canadian citizenship, a lot of them have tons of family, sometimes more family in the US. Many of our clients have lived in different countries and this isn't their first move.
Hmm. Yep. I think that's an experience a lot of our clients have had as well. Absolutely. Well, I think in conclusion, I think hopefully this was interesting for our clients to give them a taste of what you guys can offer them. And I think, like you said, that if anybody, has an interest in Visa Franchise, we can make an introduction and be more than happy to reach out to Patrick on their behalf. And like you said, they might get a little better treatment if they come through us as opposed to just, off the street. And it sounds like you guys are willing and able to give our clients, that extra attention and go the extra mile to make sure they have a great experience. So I
Yeah,
think,
so we have a vetted portfolio of say 60 or so franchise opportunities that have gone through our strict brand due diligence process. And then we also, are constantly trying to expand on that list. So we're open to clients, if they find interesting concepts that could potentially be a good fit for the E-2 visa. But most of our clients do go with those franchise brands that have kind of passed the test of time, where
Mhm.
I think the average age of the franchise brands like 25 years. They have, 50 plus locations. So we're looking for you to have stability rather than have, a high risk, high reward
Mhm.
franchise opportunity.
And do clients need to come to you already with a specific geographic area, or can they say, "Hey, I'm interested in this type of business," or it makes things a lot easier if they can say, "Hey, I'm going to do it in
Ideally,
Florida."
they could have like a few cities and states.
Okay.
I think it's fine if it's not just like one area. We're happy to look. A lot of our clients are, I like Orlando, Florida, but I'm also looking at Dallas, Austin, even St. Augustine and Jacksonville. Can you check territory for franchises there? And
Okay.
generally, our clients are opening up new franchises for 100K, 120K. We've gone as low as 60K, depending on the consulate they're applying for, the type of business, or if it's a change of status, etc. But most are investing more than 100K. Um, and there are some clients that will do resale business, but it's usually 300K plus, because if you're buying an existing franchise, you're generally paying 2.5 times to 4 times
Hmm.
the cash flow.
Right.
So if you're trying to do that for 100K, you're buying a business that's not making much money. You can't live off
Right.
30K in the
Right.
US.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, these are all important considerations, and I think that's why it's important, for our clients who are looking at franchises to work with people such as yourself, since given the experience. I mean, here's the thing: this is a life changing, decision for our clients and yours. You don't want to make mistakes. You don't want to overlook things that could really cause problems down the road or even immediately. So I think it's important to get the right advice up front. So thank you again. Thank you, Patrick, for your time and everything, and your insights on these issues. And certainly look forward to working with you in the future with our clients, going forward.
Let's do it. Thanks, Charles.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy your time in France as well.